The morning mist hangs heavily over the ancient stones of the quiet country church, a setting that feels detached from the frantic pace of modern life, yet stands at the absolute center of global attention. On this seemingly ordinary weekend, a gathering of historical proportions drew the eyes of millions to a quiet village, transforming a private celebration into a grand theater of unspoken power and carefully choreographed movements. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation, carrying the distinct weight of tradition and the sharp edge of contemporary tension as the gates opened to welcome guests whose lives are constantly examined under the harshest public microscopes. To the casual observer, it was a beautiful gathering of an extraordinary family, a moment of joy and reunion bathed in the soft light of an English summer afternoon. But beneath the surface of the smiles and the elegant attire lay a complex web of narratives waiting to be unraveled. Every arrival was calculated, every glance measured, and every gesture carried a significance that far outweighed its brief appearance on camera, hinting at a larger story unfolding behind the gilded doors of the palace. It is a world where nothing happens by accident, where a simple walk down a church path can be a declaration of status, and where the presence of certain individuals can shift the entire equilibrium of an institution that has survived for centuries. As we begin to peel back the layers of this fascinating weekend, we invite you to join our growing community by subscribing to the channel, ensuring you never miss an exhaustive analysis of these historic moments and the hidden dynamics that shape the public face of tradition. The air was filled with the faint sound of distant chatter and the clicking of shutters as the first prominent figures began to make their way toward the entrance, setting the stage for an event that would be talked about for months to come. This was not merely a celebration of a new beginning for two people, but a grand stage where old alliances were tested and new boundaries were subtly drawn in the sand under the watchful eyes of the world. The intrigue began long before the first carriage or luxury vehicle arrived at the gates, as whispers of carefully coordinated arrivals and unusual logistical arrangements began to circulate among those tasked with documenting the day. While the majority of the distinguished guests followed the standard protocol, stepping out into the view of the gathered press for a brief wave before disappearing into the sanctuary, a distinct subplot was unfolding away from the immediate glare of the cameras. A temporary detour to a nearby residence allowed a specific group to gather in private, aligning their timing and coordinating their presentation with meticulous care before presenting a united front to the public. This deliberate alignment was the first real indication that the day would hold far more than just ceremonial significance, serving as a prelude to a series of moments that would ignite intense discussion across media platforms worldwide. The visual of this specific group advancing together toward the church was a masterclass in public presentation, an assertion of presence that spoke volumes without a single word being uttered to the reporters lining the pathway. The confidence in their stride and the deliberate pauses for the lenses signaled a refusal to occupy the periphery, choosing instead to step directly into the spotlight at a time when many expected a much more reserved approach to public life. It was a fascinating display of resilience and strategic visibility, a reminder that within this unique family, the art of the public appearance is a powerful tool wielded with absolute precision and intent. As the procession moved closer to the doors, the atmosphere grew increasingly charged, with onlookers and experts alike scrambling to interpret the underlying messages being sent through the medium of a high-profile family gathering. The interactions that followed on the steps of the church would provide the definitive imagery of the weekend, capturing a moment of apparent warmth that instantly triggered a wave of comparisons to cinematic history and classical power dynamics. A single greeting, a brief touch, and a fleeting smile were transformed in an instant into a global talking point, analyzed frame by an audience eager to understand the true state of relations behind the public facade. This particular exchange, rich with subtext and open to myriad interpretations, became the defining symbol of the event, illustrating the profound duality of public duty and private strategy that defines the modern experience of this ancient lineage. The contrast between the joy of the occasion and the cold reality of ongoing structural shifts was palpable, creating a narrative tension that kept the audience captivated from the first arrival to the final departure. It was a clear demonstration of how a joyous milestone can simultaneously serve as a landscape for subtle assertions of authority, where every participant plays a role in a larger, ongoing chronicle of continuity and change. As the services commenced inside, the external world was already alive with debate, fueled by the striking visuals and the unmistakable sense that a significant moment of transition was being broadcast in real time. The balance of visibility and restraint, of tradition and modernity, was maintained with a delicate touch, leaving those watching to wonder what further revelations would emerge as the day progressed and the full scope of the event became clear. The gathering served as a vivid reminder of the enduring power of visual storytelling in the modern age, where a single afternoon can encapsulate years of history, personal growth, and institutional evolution. With each passing minute, the true complexity of the occasion became more apparent, drawing viewers deeper into a narrative that balances the grandeur of heritage with the sharp realities of contemporary life. This weekend was a testament to the fact that even in moments of pure celebration, the threads of the past and the designs for the future are constantly being woven together, creating a tapestry that is as beautiful as it is intricate. As we prepare to delve into the specific details and the core meanings behind these remarkable scenes, the anticipation only grows, setting the stage for a complete revelation of the forces at play behind the smiles and the ceremonial splendor. The intricate tapestry of the weekend wedding of Peter Phillips and Harriet Sperling began to unravel in full view of the world, transforming a joyous celebration in Gloucestershire into a vivid, three-dimensional map of the current palace power struggle. At the heart of this public display was an extraordinary moment that immediately set the internet ablaze, drawing instant comparisons to one of the most famous scenes in cinematic history. When Prince William greeted his cousin, Princess Beatrice, with a conspicuous kiss on the cheek, the collective mind of the public went straight to Michael Corleone and his brother Fredo in The Godfather. It was a visual that carried an almost overwhelming weight of subtext, a public gesture of familial warmth that contrasted sharply with the chilly reality of the briefing wars happening behind the scenes. The York sisters, Beatrice and Eugenie, made what can only be described as a staged, defiant entrance, orchestrating a grand return to the royal spotlight that left no doubt about their intentions. Unlike the other high-profile guests who were simply dropped off at the church door for a quick wave, before disappearing inside, Beatrice and Eugenie executed a highly coordinated logistical maneuver. They arrived separately at a nearby house in the local village, waited for each other to assemble, and then formed what some commentators have called a gruesome foursome with their partners to march down to the church together. This was a deliberate, calculated move designed specifically for the cameras, a clear public declaration that despite recent highly damaging headlines, they have no intention of slinking away into the background or keeping a low profile. This bold assertion of their place within the royal circle comes immediately on the heels of a damning National Audit Office report, which revealed a highly embarrassing financial detail to the British public. The official audit exposed that the York princesses had paid absolutely no rent on two luxury apartments in the center of London for the past 20 years. And even more shockingly, that King Charles himself had been quietly covering those substantial expenses. The timing of their grand stylized appearance at the wedding seemed to be a direct response to this scrutiny, a manifestation of what is being called the hot princess summer, signaling that they intend to be highly visible at every major social event from the Serpentine Gallery to Royal Ascot. However, the true significance of the weekend extends far beyond the calculated choreography of the York sisters or a simple peck on the cheek from the future king. This entire event served as a grand theater for a much larger, more profound constitutional dynamic, representing a powerful reassertion of control by King Charles as he continued to recover his strength following his recent cancer diagnosis. While the public has been treated to months of strategic briefings from Prince William's camp, suggesting a shift in authority, the monarch utilized this family gathering to telegraph an unmistakable message to his son and the wider world that he remains firmly in charge of the institution. The tension between the father and son reflects two fundamentally opposing philosophies on how the modern monarchy should navigate the turbulent waters of public opinion and social media. Prince William is known to be incredibly in tune with the digital landscape, hyper-aware of the optics of the royal brand on social media platforms, and convinced that there must be clear blue water between the working family and those tarnished by past controversies. William's side has spent months quietly signaling that the York family should be kept entirely under the radar, viewing their continued public association with the crown as a distinct risk to the institution's long-term survival and contemporary relevance. King Charles, on the other hand, holds an entirely opposite worldview, viewing social media with the same disdain he reserves for fast food and modernist architecture, treating it as a modern ill that should be completely ignored in favor of deeper historic principles. The king remains fiercely dedicated to the traditional family model established during the reign of Queen Victoria, a philosophy centered on visual reconciliation, unity, and forgiveness, which explains his persistent efforts to reabsorb family members back into the fold. For the first 6 months following the king's cancer announcement, when public anxiety was at its peak and many genuinely feared the worst, a natural shift occurred where significant power and influence began to coalesce rapidly around the Prince of Wales. Now, as the king experiences a remarkable resurgence in health, he is effectively signaling that the transition of ultimate authority is firmly on hold, demonstrating that he will continue to dictate the terms and direction of the family's public image. Rather than engage in a highly damaging public resistance against his father's wishes, Prince William sensibly chose to follow the rigid, military-style discipline that underpins the entire structure of the royal household. In an organization heavily modeled on military hierarchy, where the foundational rule is to follow orders and salute the badge rather than the man, William showed up, played his part flawlessly, and delivered the kiss that echoed around the world. The complexity of the day was further heightened by the sudden appearance of a deeply strategic counter-briefing in the Sunday Times, which appeared almost simultaneously with the images of the wedding. This article, clearly originating from the Prince of Wales's camp, laid out an uncompromising vision for the future, explicitly stating that when William eventually ascends the throne, a much tighter property policy will be enforced, and certain family members will find themselves cast out of their royal residences. This rapid and well-organized pushback allowed William to maintain a dual public image, presenting the face of a civilized, charitable cousin at a family wedding while simultaneously reassuring the public that his long-term policy of streamlining the monarchy remains completely unchanged. Amidst these heavy undercurrents of power and policy, the wedding also provided an extraordinary showcase of traditional British high society, blending elements of genuine public service with the unavoidable extravagance of royal life. The bride, Harriet Spurling, who works hard as an NHS nurse and has been widely celebrated as a relatable single mother, looked absolutely radiant in a custom creation by acclaimed designer Amelia Wickstead. The ivory crepe gown featured a clean, modern square neck column silhouette, beautifully balanced by a finely detailed lace overjacket that was elegantly nipped in at the waist. Her dramatic 3-meter train, inspired by a classic 19th century silhouette, was accompanied by a veil embroidered with delicate wildflowers, native to the county of Gloucestershire, adding a deeply personal and local touch to the ensemble. Her look was completed with Jimmy Choo heels and a magnificent family tiara sourced from the prestigious Warwickshire jeweler Pragnell, a historic piece that sat atop her head without any of the reported dramatic negotiations that have plagued other recent royal nuptials. The groom, Peter Phillips, looked thoroughly delighted with his new beginning, standing alongside a bride whose aristocratic lineage is actually quite notable, her mother being a cousin to the Duke of Gloucester, proving that in England, one can possess an incredibly prestigious pedigree while still working a demanding everyday job. This elegant display marked a significant moment of personal rebranding for Peter, whose past endeavors have, occasionally, attracted severe public criticism and embarrassment for the crown. For years, observers remembered his controversial commercial ventures, most notably a highly public television advertisement for Chinese milk, where he openly leveraged his royal status, as well as an exclusive £500,000 magazine deal for his first wedding. The weekend's celebrations, however, successfully reframed his image into that of an honest, hard-working son of the soil, surrounded by a family determined to project an image of absolute stability and joy. Princess Anne epitomized this traditional, no-nonsense approach to royal duty and sustainability by confidently wearing a beautiful hat that she had first debuted 45 years prior at the christening of her daughter, Zara Tindall, back in 1981. Zara herself was a vision of summer elegance, wearing a striking lavender meaty dress by designer Rebecca Valance, complete with fashionable puffed sleeves and a perfectly matching headband, accompanied by her husband Mike Tindall. Yet, even on a day dedicated to a new bride, the arrival of the Princess of Wales, Catherine, drew an unparalleled level of global attention as she stepped out of her vehicle, looking blooming marvelous. Catherine selected an elegant, soft-toned Roland Mouret dress that sparked an immediate debate among fashion commentators, with observers split on whether to describe the unique shade as a delicate blush or a sophisticated taupe. The garment featured a distinctive dropped waist, structured pleats, and a beautifully button-notched collar, representing a contemporary evolution of her signature, tailored coat suit aesthetic. She completed the look with a sophisticated hat by Jane Taylor, coordinated John Vito Rossi court shoes, and a historic three-stranded pearl necklace from the Nigel Milne collection that had famously belonged to the late Princess Diana, presenting a picture of flawless elegance that captivated audiences worldwide. The delicate balance between high society celebration and the shifting sands of institutional power reached its full expression as the wedding day transitioned from the sacred solemnity of the church to the celebratory receptions that followed. Queen Camilla arrived looking impeccably elegant in a cream dress paired with a striking yellow-brimmed hat, sparking a lively debate among fashion enthusiasts about whether the pale palette bordered too closely on the traditional preserves of the bride. Yet, the synchronized presentation of the monarch and his consort remained undeniable, underscored by a charming detail that caught the eyes of keen observers as the king's tailored waistcoat perfectly matched the precise cream tone of the queen's designer dress. King Charles himself looked exceptionally robust and dapper, dressed in a flawless formal suit crafted by his longtime preferred tailors at Anderson & Shepherd, the legendary establishment located on London's historic Savile Row. Adorning his lapel was a highly symbolic Royal Artillery tie pin, a poignant and deeply respectful tribute to Kira Sullivan, the young soldier who had tragically lost her life following a devastating fall from her horse during the Royal Windsor Horse Show just 1 month prior. This subtle gesture spoke volumes about the king's personal approach to his role, demonstrating an unwavering commitment to remembering those who serve the crown even amidst the grand scale of a high-profile family gathering. Immediately following the conclusion of the ceremony, the king and queen executed a swift and highly coordinated departure, bounding out of the church grounds and leaping into their distinctive purple royal helicopter to fly directly to the Epsom racecourse. This rapid transit was a deliberate effort by Charles to show his ongoing, visible support for the British racing community, an industry that had historically received immense affection from the late Queen Elizabeth II and had recently felt somewhat sidelined by the new monarch's restructuring efforts. While some media commentators questioned the public relations impact of utilizing a private helicopter for such a brief journey during a heavily scrutinized weekend, the move highlighted the intense pressure on the modern monarchy to balance traditional duties with public perceptions of wealth and privilege. This intense media lens was focused even more sharply on Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie, whose very presence at the heart of the family weekend had been the subject of frantic speculation for days leading up to the event. The decision to have the York sisters features so prominently was seen by many palace insiders as a deeply defiant move, an intentional choice to ignore the wave of public criticism surrounding their recent financial disclosures. The controversy stems from an official National Audit Office report that laid bare the highly favorable arrangements the sisters had enjoyed regarding their London residences, followed by a somewhat convoluted explanation in the press that attempted to shift the responsibility back to decisions made during the previous reign. For many observers, the idea that a monarch would publicly defend such arrangements 3.5 years after the passing of the late queen felt increasingly untenable, pointing to a broader vulnerability within the family's contemporary public relations strategy. The deep-seated anxiety surrounding the York family's long-term position is rooted in a fear of what future investigations might reveal. Echoing the historic difficulties that eventually forced Prince Andrew out of public life after his own defensive strategies collapsed under intense legal and journalistic scrutiny. As the public watches this familiar pattern repeat itself, the internal conflict between Prince William's vision for a streamlined, modern monarchy and King Charles's dedication to a unified family model becomes the defining narrative of the era. This ongoing ideological battle is what makes the public interaction between William and Beatrice so utterly fascinating, serving as a visual microcosm of a much larger institutional transition that will shape the crown for decades to come. The Prince of Wales's camp has consistently signaled an absolute determination to establish clear blue water between the working core of the family and those who carry reputational risks. Utilizing strategic media briefings to prepare the public for sweeping changes once he eventually ascends the throne. This forward-looking briefing strategy is known to cause immense frustration within the king's current team, who view any public discussion of the next reign as a direct challenge to the authority and relevance of the sitting monarch. Throughout his own exceptionally long tenure as the heir apparent, Charles strictly adhered to the institutional fiction that his mother would reign indefinitely, never allowing his staff to publicly detail how he would alter the monarchy until the moment he actually took the throne. In contrast, Prince William appears far more willing to signal his modernizing intentions early, creating an underlying narrative tension that was palpable throughout every public moment of this landmark weekend. The true weight of this transition is felt deeply by those who document these events, reflecting on the immense privilege of witnessing history unfold, while recognizing the profound personal sacrifices and structural pressures that define the lives of this unique dynasty. As the sun began to set over the Gloucestershire countryside, bringing a close to an extraordinary chapter of royal history, the images of reconciliation, elegance, and unspoken strategy left an indelible mark on the public consciousness. The weekend successfully demonstrated that while the crown remains a deeply traditional and military-structured organization built on hierarchy and obedience, it must constantly evolve to survive in an era dominated by instant global communication and intense democratic accountability. The complex interplay between a father reasserting his hard-won authority and a son quietly positioning himself for the future ensures that the story of this ancient lineage remains as compelling and unpredictable as ever. Ultimately, the grand gathering in the quiet village church was not just a celebration of a new marriage, but a powerful reminder of the enduring resilience of an institution that has mastered the art of survival through the careful choreography